Well, some are saying the declaration is unconstitutional. Is it? Let's ask Susan Sullivan, a professor of law and politics at Temple University in Philadelphia. Susan, welcome to the program. Does this declaration challenge or violate the Constitution?
Well, in a sense, it does both, but it also, in an interesting way, validates the Constitution and shows it to be this perfect machine, because the Constitution is very clear about the three branches of government and the specific powers they have. And it's very clear that only the Congress has the power to spend money. And so this declaration is essentially taking money from other parts of the budget and spending it. And the question is not whether he has the power to do that. I don't think any successful lawsuit would challenge his power. As he did rightly point out, presidents declare emergencies often. President Obama declared 12, President Clinton 17. The question is, can you declare an emergency that flies specifically in the face of Congress, when Congress has just today said, we will allow you to spend 1.3 billion, and the declaration will attempt to spend more. But the reason this is such a beautiful situation is because what we see is the executive, Donald Trump, fighting it out with the legislative branch, the Congress. And who will decide? The Supreme Court, the third branch, the judiciary. And that's how the American Constitution is supposed to work, checking each branch to make sure that not one branch and not one person has unfettered discretion. And that's how you preserve democracy.
You put that so eloquently. Does this, I guess, how can we expect Republicans to defend the constitutionality of this?
Well, I think Republicans are going to have a hard time with that. And I think you won't see as much of a groundswell of support, precisely because the battle here is between the power of the president and the power of the Congress, and they're not going to want to relinquish that much of it. So I think you'll see some stealth support, but I don't think you'll see a lot of overt support.
You touched on this a bit, but does this move manipulate or embolden the words of its authors?
I think it really does great service to it. I think what's interesting is, as I said, there have been many declarations, and there's usually a consensus behind them. One of the issues here is this even an emergency? Is this the kind of thing, the kind of threat that we think of as being urgent, as being necessary? I think Donald Trump today undercut that idea of it being an emergency. And if it's not an emergency, he doesn't have that power. When he said in the Rose Garden, I didn't need this. I would rather do this fast than not. And, you know, if something is an emergency, you need it, you do it. So that undercuts, I think, his own assertion that it's an emergency. And without that emergency power, if it's not an emergency, then he cannot exercise that power.
Susan, what are the political repercussions of using the Constitution in this way?
Well, I think most people are focusing more on the PR of getting the wall done. The people that are going to have always bought into the president's rhetoric are going to continue to do so. It's not until this gets up to the Supreme Court that the constitutional issues, I think, will get enough attention for it to begin to threaten politicians. I'm thinking in terms of 2020. So I don't think the political fallout is going to rest on the constitutionality. I think it's going to depend more on whether this is seen as an illegal grab or seen as Donald Trump standing up for his base and his principles and doing everything he can to fulfill that campaign.